Good morning, how are you everyone? Welcome to the English class literature book. So today inshallah we are going to take chapter 1. The title is The Dinner That Cooked Itself. Please open your books on page number 9. Do you open your books? Are you ready? Okay. This story is a very nice story and very interesting. So let's start. A poor young man with a good, kind heart finds the happiness that he deserves. Shetwan was a young man. He was tall and strong. He worked in a merchant's shop. Where did he work? He worked in a merchant's shop. He worked well and he was honest. So Shay Wan was an honest man. Everyone liked him. His father and mother had died when he was very small. A kind neighbor, Old Wang, had taken him in. Old Wang took him into his home because he did not have a home and looked after him like a son. Now, Old Wang tried to find a wife for him, but the parents would always say that Tuan was too poor to marry their daughter or their daughter. Tuan continued to work as usual. He left home in the morning and came back at night after working in his little field. One night, he was walking along the path to his house. The moonlight shone on a stone by the edge of the path. It was round and pointed at the top. Tuan bent down to look more closely. It was not a stone, but a snail. Do you know snail? It's a small creature with a hard shell on its back, commonly found in gardens. It was not a stone, but a snail as big as a small melon. It was a sign of luck to find such a thing. Tuan picked up the snail and hurried home. He put the snail in a large jar and gave it some leaves to eat. The next morning, he looked inside the jar. He was pleased to see that the snail had eaten all the leaves. That day, Tuan came home from work as usual. When he entered the house, he saw a dish of cooked rice and vegetables. The floor had been swept clean. How kind people are, Tuan thought. It must be Mrs. Wang. The food tasted wonderful. He hurried to thank Mrs. Wang, but she said she had not been near his house. Tuan wondered who had cooked his dinner. When he came home from work the next day, exactly the same thing had happened. Again, there was a dish of hot rice and little balls of meat. Tuan wondered Who was being so kind? He asked many of his neighbors, but nobody knew anything. It was very strange. Every day the same thing happened. Each day Tuan would come home to find his room swept clean and his dinner on the table. At last he decided to find out for himself. He left his house as usual, but he secretly came back and hid outside. For a while, all was still. Then, suddenly, something moved. A lovely woman climbed out of the jar and walked across the room. Quickly, Tuan entered the house. First, he looked inside the jar. There was so there was no snail there. Do you remember that when he put the snail in the jar? Only an empty shell. The young woman was very frightened. "Oh, who are you?" asked Tuan. "Where do you come from? Why are you looking after my house for me?" The girl said nothing. She was still very frightened. At last she said, "I'm a fairy and my name is White Wave. The Lord of our world was sorry for you because you have no father or mother and live all alone. You are hard working, honest, and polite. So he sent me to look after you. He told me to stay with you until you grew rich and are married. Then I must leave you and return to my world. But now you have seen me as I am. Humans cannot be permitted to see me. I must leave you at once. You may keep the shell. Use the jar to keep rice and only empty it when you are really hungry. You will find that it'll fill up again at once." Tuan tried very hard to get her to stay, but she would not, she would not. She had to go. Sher Tuan always remembered the fairy and often prayed to her. Since then, he always had enough food. Tuan never became very rich, but he married a good woman at last, and they were very happy all their lives. Okay, do you like this story? Is it a true story? No, of course. It is not true. Okay? It's one of imaginary or fictional stories, okay? But it's nice. Okay, thank you.